Welcome back to Financial Fundamentals, where we break down money concepts in a way that actually makes sense. Today, sit back, listen up, and learn about one of the most valuable benefits your employer might already be offering you, the 401k employer match. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how a match works, why people call it free money, and the important rules around vesting and contribution limits that determine how much of it you actually get to keep. Let's start with why this matters. Imagine your employer walked up to you on payday and said, "Hey, I'll hand you an extra $1,500 this year, but only if you ask for it." Most people would ask for it, right? The 401k employer match works a lot like that. It's compensation your employer is ready to put on the table for your retirement, but it only kicks in if you take action first. Millions of workers leave this money completely untouched every single year, simply because nobody ever sat them down and explained how it works. That's exactly what we're here to fix. So let's build this from the ground up, starting with the basics. A 401k is what's called a defined contribution plan. Let's slow down on that phrase for a second because it's going to matter. Defined contribution just means that what's defined, what's set in stone, is how much goes in. A fixed amount gets contributed during your working years, and your retirement income will be whatever that fund has grown to by the time you retire. The investment risk sits with you, not your employer. This is different from an old-fashioned pension, which is called a defined benefit plan, where the employer guarantees a set monthly payment in retirement no matter what the market does. Most private employers don't offer those traditional pensions anymore. The 401k became the mainstream replacement, and it's what the majority of American workers have access to today. Now, here's where the employer match comes in. When you contribute money from your paycheck into your 401k, many employers will add extra money on top of yours as a match. This is considered a form of deferred compensation. Think of it as part of your total pay package, like health insurance or paid time off. It's just structured as money that goes directly toward your retirement instead of hitting your bank account today. Here's a really important thing to understand. The match doesn't usually happen automatically. In most plans, you have to contribute your own money first to unlock your employer's contribution. The more you put in, up to a certain point, the more your employer adds. If you put in nothing, your employer typically adds nothing. That's why it's so important to understand the formula your specific employer uses. Speaking of formulas, let's talk about what they actually look like. Match formulas vary by employer, but two of the most common patterns sound like this. First, 100% match on the first 3% of your salary. That means if you contribute 3% of your paycheck to your 401k, your employer puts in an amount equal to 100% of that, so dollar for dollar, up to 3% of your salary. Second, 50% match on the first 6% of your salary. Here, if you contribute 6% of your pay, your employer adds 50 cents for every dollar you put in, so they're matching half, but up to 6% of your salary. The math works out to 3% of your salary in employer contributions in both examples, just structured differently. And here's a natural question: what would you actually do with that extra money building up for your future? Even a few $100s a year in employer contributions, growing over decades, can make a meaningful difference in what your retirement looks like. More on that in our example coming up. Now there are two major rules that trip people up, so let's go through them carefully. Rule number 1, vesting schedules. Vesting is a word that just means ownership. When you're vested in something, it's legally yours. Here's the thing: your own contributions to your 401k are always 100% yours from day one. If you put $5,000 in and you leave your job tomorrow, that $5,000 and whatever it earned goes with you, no question. But the employer's matching contributions, those may not be fully yours right away. Employers can attach a vesting schedule to their match, meaning you have to stay at the company for a certain number of years before that employer money is truly and completely yours to keep. There are two common types of vesting schedules. Cliff vesting is when you're owed nothing from the employer's match until you hit a certain milestone, say 3 years, and then suddenly 100% of the employer contributions vest all at once. If you leave before that cliff, you could forfeit all of it. Graded vesting spreads that ownership out over time. Maybe you're 20% vested after year 1, 40% after year 2, and so on until you reach 100%. If you leave partway through, you'd keep whatever percentage had already vested. This is one of the most important things to look up in your own plan documents, because the vesting rules genuinely affect how much of the match you actually walk away with if you ever change jobs. Rule number 2, Contribution limits. The IRS, that's the Internal Revenue Service, the U.S. tax authority, sets a cap on how much you're allowed to contribute to your 401k each year. This limit applies to your personal contributions and changes most years to keep up with inflation, so we intentionally won't quote a specific dollar figure here, because that number will be outdated at some point. What you want to do is search for the current IRS 401k contribution limit for the year you're in. That will always give you the most accurate number. One more thing on limits. If you're 50 or older, the IRS allows what are called catch-up contributions, an extra amount you're allowed to add on top of the regular limit, specifically to help people accelerate their retirement savings as they get closer to retirement age. That catch-up limit is also published by the IRS each year. And a quick note for anyone watching from outside the United States, this video is specifically about US 401k plans. If you're in the UK or Ireland, you'd be looking at something called a pension scheme. In Australia or New Zealand, the equivalent is called superannuation or super. Each system has its own rules, contribution structures, and matching mechanics, so the specific details here won't apply directly to those countries. Okay, let's pause and recap what we know so far, because we've covered a lot of ground. A 401k is a defined contribution retirement plan, meaning the amount going in is set but the final value depends on investment growth. Your employer can add matching contributions on top of yours, but you usually have to contribute first to unlock it. Vesting schedules determine whether you actually keep the employer's contributions if you leave the company early. Your own contributions are always yours, and contribution limits set by the IRS each year cap how much you personally can put in. Got it? Good. Let's run through a real example. Here's an illustrative example. These are round numbers to make the math clear, and this is not a prediction of what will happen in your specific situation. Imagine someone earning $60,000 a year. Their employer offers a 100% match on the first 3% of salary. To get the full match, this employee needs to contribute 3% of their salary to their 401k. 3% of $60,000 is $1,800 per year. The employer then adds another $1,800. Total going into the 401k that year, $3,600, but only $1,800 of that came out of the employee's own pocket. Now, imagine the same employee only contributes 1% of their salary. That's $600. The employer matches that $600, and $1,200 of potential employer contribution goes unclaimed, not because the employer took it back, it just never got triggered. That's the free money left on the table situation people warn about. Now layer investing. Say this employer uses a 3-year cliff vesting schedule. If this employee leaves after 2 years, they keep every dollar of their own $1,800 plus any investment growth on it. But the employer's $1,800 in contributions? Under a cliff schedule, if the cliff hasn't been reached, that portion may be forfeited entirely. Leave after the cliff, all of it stays with you. Again, these numbers are illustrative. Your employer's formula, vesting schedule, and the IRS limits for your specific year will all be different. Always check your own plan documents. Here's something worth sitting with for a second. If you're currently enrolled in a 401k at work, or even if you're not sure whether you are, do you know your employer's match formula? Do you know your vesting schedule? If you don't have those answers yet, that's completely okay. That's exactly why Financial Fundamentals exists. To give you the vocabulary and the framework to go find that information and actually understand it when you do. The single biggest takeaway from everything we've covered today is this. The employer match is part of your total compensation, and it only works if you contribute enough to unlock it. Understanding your specific plan's formula, vesting rules, and the annual IRS contribution limits is how you make sure you're not unintentionally leaving money on the table. If this breakdown helped things click for you, please give this video a like. It genuinely helps more people find this content. If you know someone who just started a new job or is trying to figure out their benefits for the first time, share this with them. It could be one of the most useful things they watch this year. And if you have questions, or there's another money topic you'd love us to break down, drop it in the comments. We go through every comment, and your questions actually shape future videos. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is a great time. We're here to explain the financial fundamentals clearly, patiently, and without any fluff, one topic at a time. This video is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice. Markets and investments carry risk, including the possible loss of principal. Always do your own research and consult a licensed financial professional before making investment, tax, or money decisions.